Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. This morning we will be welcoming, hopefully, our guest very shortly to speak to us about a situation which seems to have calmed down a bit. But to start the conversation, we're focusing on Tobago, the Tobago House of Assembly, and what's happening with the Progressive Democratic Patriots. And boy, oh boy, is this it just continues. It's just continuing, and there seems to be no end to it. This morning, we will analyze and dissect that situation. Alongside me is my co-host and colleague in the hot seat, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Camille, and it's a shame our other colleague, Camille, wasn't here for the discussion. We were hoping
Keaton.
To have him with him. No, so Keaton is here, but our other colleague, Camille.
Good morning, Camille.
No, I said good morning. Oh, well. It is what it is. Folks, therein lies the breaks of live TV. But with that said, yes, as I was saying, it's a shame our other colleague won't be here for the discussion. We were trying to hold off on it, as well as to see how it would unfold. Because, as I implied yesterday, I think the situation in any sort of Westminster government, or even any sort of government, I don't think I have ever heard of a situation where the political leader of a party is not the head of the executive after winning, basically, the election that they went up for. Yes, the THA is not necessarily the national executive, but for all intents and purposes, it's an executive body. And it leaves us in a very weird situation where we're getting these tit for tats. And I already spoke to a political analyst, Shane Mohammed. He just thinks that the genesis is all about governance and the procedural parts of the initial claim Mr. Duke said with regards to supporting the Roxborough entertainers. But now we're seeing a political, I'm not sure, I have seen power play in some circles, a clash. I don't expect the fallout to be over now, but Keaton, I think this is a bit more, as much as Dr. Mohammed wanted to focus on that initial root cause, to me this is a very interesting, potentially unfortunate, dynamic situation.
It is very, very unfortunate. I think you hit the nail on the head by describing it as that. You have to understand that after 21 years of the People's National Movement holding on to Tobago, the people deciding that the PNM was our best option, after 21 years they said, no, hold up, I think we have something here that we would prefer. We want change, we want a breath of fresh air, and we want younger, more visionary individuals. And that's what we saw in the election last year. Though it was close, and we must also acknowledge that in some areas the count was very, very close. In some instances, yes, the votes being separated by 3 votes. But anyway, I think what I'm seeing now from Watson Duke is, I said it last year when the PDP won the election. I said, Watson Duke is the creator of the PDP, but he can also be the death of the PDP. Because, with all due respect, I mean, Watson Duke is a loose cannon. He simply is a loose cannon. That's the best way to describe an individual like him. I think what he also needs to understand is that what he is doing by making this internal spat public, because quite frankly, it seems as though this is something that was festering or building up within him for quite some time. I don't even know what he has done as Deputy Chief Secretary of the THA. I know that he's been in Trinidad a lot, building the PDP Trinidad branch, which makes me wonder.
The one thing I heard of him in Trinidad did not sound good.
Not at all. And we heard it from more than one source.
There was a live video where he said some unfortunate things. Nothing as bad as in Sandy Grande, but...
Yeah, but put all this together, and Watson Duke is doing a disservice to the people of Tobago by allowing his, it seems to be a personal spat. It seems to be a personal ego thing that is really, really now, he's allowing it to affect not only the perception of the PDP-led THA, but he's also, quite frankly, in instances like this. Nobody wants to see a weak government. Nobody wants to, and to me, what the UK is trying to do, especially at a very critical time, considering there's the national budget coming up, and there's also the local government elections that are due, he is doing a huge disservice, Sean.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't expect that it's intentional with regards to, you know, you always hear in America with that Republican, it's some sort of master plan. It's like, no, why does it have to be a master plan? Right? Why does it have to be a master plan? I personally think that he's ill-suited for the role, but his saving grace was during the election, and even to some extent after, he was a lot less vocal than when it came to his duties as the president of the PSA. Right? In fact, the main criticism I had for him for the majority of the last year was his infamous line for WASO workers saying that not only will no one lose their high-paying jobs, that their high-paying jobs will not get any reduction in salary, but they will get a raise. That is his words, right? The terms there with regards to high-paying jobs, that's what he said. I might have paraphrased around that, which then goes to show you that's not what any of the other union leaders are saying. So now with his entering the political arena proper, because union leaders are, for all intents and purposes, politicians, really. For now, him entering into an executive body, not being the chief, and making claims or having his proxy make claims, his proxy from Trinidad making claims about a political party started in Tobago. Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to her. Let's start off. We should have a couple of clips. Hopefully, we have all of them in the system. Let's start off with what Farley had today. We have a short clip courtesy of our editors and newsroom that I think will maybe shed some light on the starting point before we get into Mr. Duke and his Trinidad deputy's assertions.
It cannot be that a deputy chief secretary will mount a public platform and will moot points that really and truly goes against the very facts of the matter. And I cannot attest to what motivated this. And in fact, I don't even care to theorize about what motivated this. But one thing I know for sure is that so long as I'm here as chief secretary, there is one chief secretary in this space, one leader in this space, there is one team in this space, and we move as a team, and we will be taking decisions in accordance with what the law says. Full stop. So
in the interest of time, let me just say that by all accounts, and we haven't necessarily heard anything to contradict this per se, right? Mr. Duke made some claims that the entertainers or performers from Roxborough were left out to dry, but I believe Mr. Augustine, he made counterclaims on Thursday, basically stating, look, their accommodation was not our responsibility. That fell through on somebody else's end, on their end, on the person who was providing it. We have money available. I have heard Dr. Mohammed said $400,000. I have not necessarily heard the exact context of how that money was if it was given. But I do believe what happens is, because I know this because my family's in the industry. They need, wherever it is these performers are going to be staying, to invoice the THA so that the THA can pay them. They cannot just send the money to New York as a wire transfer. The amount of money, if anything, seems to be too much for those who know about performing groups that travel, because I am also a member of a performing group that has travel, and I'm very certain we have never spent $400,000.
Wait, hold on.
Even going to New York.
$400,000, a sponsorship. Bear in mind, that's nothing to do, well, at least the counterpoint that Farley Augustine put forward actually does not relate to what Mr. Duke was stating. Mr. Duke was stating they left them stranded, you know, not so much as just a ticket, a plane ticket. Farley Augustine is stating, listen, we were never responsible for this group. You know, but we were a sponsor, and we gave them funds, up to $400,000. But a couple things. First of all, I personally do not think that Farley Augustine should have responded in the manner in which he did.
Interesting.
Because, and here's the point, he made and when I say the manner in which he did, I think he should have just cut it and said, it cannot be this way. We have to work together as a team. That's where to end it. To come and now state that Watson Duke has not been performing and his position will now be under review, that part he could have left out, especially knowing that he is Chief Secretary and you want to quell the situation as fast as possible.
I think you're right. I don't think it would have worked out as what you would hope, but I think you're right. He could have left that part out and let Duke continue. I believe Duke would have continued regardless.
Duke would have continued because, what? You made a good point, and I second that. What Watson Duke needs to realize is that the Tobago House of Assembly is not the PSA. And this is what I'm seeing from Watson Duke right now. The Tobago House of you see, Watson Duke wants to be in charge. Watson Duke wants to be in control. And that's exactly what he had with the PSA. You remember at one point he wanted to, even though he won the election in Tobago, he still wanted to keep the presidency of the PSA.
Yes.
Bear that in mind.
He fought that down.
And then he eventually gave that up and he was given the role of Deputy Chief Secretary. And even we were stating, well, maybe they gave him that position to really try and you know, to soothe him. You know, he has an ego. Let's fuel his ego. This will keep him quiet, you know. Obviously, it has not worked. It's something that's been festering for months. It's something that has not been able to work out. And if Mr. Duke's claims are true, that the Executive Council of the PDP has not met, and they're supposed to meet every month per their constitution.
Hey, does not sound familiar.
Why?
Because I can't remember everything. I never really necessarily followed the PSA. All I knew was that, you know, every now and then you would see something about members of the PSA trying to get rid of Duke, and they can't get rid of Duke. And to some extent, I do believe there was some trickery involved with regards to how the PSA was being run. So now if you're saying that the PDP, the party, not the THA, right, when you say executive, they haven't met?
That's according to Mr. Duke. That's according to Mr. Duke.
He is the political leader.
And the Constitution, no. Yes, he is.
So my point is, for him to make that statement, what is he trying to accomplish?
But put it this way, Sean.
Because it's primarily his responsibility and maybe the party chairman.
No, hold on.
Why they haven't met?
If it is that, let's just say, and this is what I'm saying, let's look at this all around. Yes, it is his responsibility as political leader of the PDP. Now, this is no longer the PDP. The campaign has ended. It's the PDP-led THA, but you have to remember that you're now working as the THA, no longer working as the PDP. You know, just for the people, you're working as the PDP-led THA. What Mr. Duke has to understand is that he is now, honestly, he is probably hurting the best thing that Tobago has seen in quite some time. Well, and as it relates to the meeting part, the meeting aspect of it, if his claims are true, question why it is Farley Augustine and the rest of the vice political leaders, deputy political leaders did not meet. Question that as well, because if his claims are true, I want to know why it is Farley didn't meet, why Dr. Faith B. Israel didn't meet, you know, because they have not responded directly.
Yeah, but I mean, given what we know of political parties, and the interesting thing, I don't want to necessarily stick too much on Watson Duke, because we're going to have to stick a pin in the conversation, but given what we know, those things are led by party leadership. But regardless of whose responsibility it is to have the meeting, I highly doubt that Watson's political deputy is going to have more responsibility or more say. Even if he has the direct responsibility at the end of the day, Mr. Duke is the political leader, so the ultimate responsibility lies with him. He could move forward. He could remove Farley as deputy political leader if Farley is somehow preventing the party from meeting properly to carry out party business, right? I think this all comes down to the fact that somebody decided on this compromise or this deal. It is almost like a deal with the devil. Now it just depends on whose claims you agree with the most with regards to who you think is the devil. Because to have the head executive of the government body and the head executive of the political party being two separate people who seemingly, and personally speaking, I never thought necessarily aligned in terms of personality, style, etc. Now that it's come to a head, when ironically they've been able to keep it under under wraps for a long time. It's very messy.
Now, very quickly before we go to the break, Watson Dukas has, he's gone off again stating that the PDP promised jobs to the youths of crying in Tobago. What has the one man done about it? Nothing, I can't see. I'll be very honest with you as we conclude for now, because we will continue. To me, it sounds as though it's the leader of a union who never removed himself from that position, now fighting down a government.
That's all he knows.
Doesn't it sound like that?
That's all he knows.
So obviously, Watson Duke, anyway, let's just end it right there for now, because I have questions about Farley Augustine as well, which we will get into a bit later. But let's take a break here on Talking Point, and when we return, well, there's something else that we'll touch on this morning. Well, there's a lot actually, but as you know, for time, we had to pause this conversation. We'll continue it very shortly.
Nuance Security and Solar Systems Limited, ensuring value with renewable energy solutions for all.
When you need land, a home, or investment property, Step-by-Step Property Consultancy and Management can help you. Call Step-by-Step today, 750-4442.
DBestToys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at DBestToys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Now, a couple weeks ago, well, actually last week, there was a report, an exclusive report by another media house revealing a situation that was brewing in the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation. Now, I say brewing because it escalated last week, but from what we understand, this has been something that has been actually building up for quite some time. And that is in relation to opposition United National Congress Alderman Susan Holder using a racial slur in one of her discussions at a council meeting, to which the PNM strongly rejected to. And I must say that I was quite surprised that this story actually somehow simmered down, considering how much it was in the atmosphere all of last week and how many people were discussing it. But this is where, Sean, to a certain extent, I think it was brought back up yesterday. Because yesterday was the ceremonial opening of Parliament. Mm-hmm. We saw from President Paul Mayweeks, and I'll be very honest with you, I question exactly what it is the President does. But yesterday in her speech addressed to the Parliament, she said, she pleaded with both sides of the bench. Put aside your differences, because your words and your actions affect every single citizen in Trinidad and Tobago. Put aside your differences and work together. And I actually thought her messaging was great. Now, the Prime Minister said her speech was nothing new to him. It seems as though the opposition leader somewhat took some form of offense to it. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe she thought it was being directed towards her. But it's to the entire Parliament. That message from the President goes in and ties back into what we saw last week. Not only in relation to working together, but people also need to understand that this is 2022. We are a rainbow nation. We are a nation of many people. So it's not only putting aside your differences, it's a matter of accepting one another. And I don't understand why there is still that level. I don't want to use the word hatred, but certainly this level, this standoff that of racism in Trinidad and Tobago, that we cannot seem to move forward from.
Well, it's interesting that you said racism, because I do wonder if this example kind of shows that really and truly, what is it really? Is it racism or is it party politics? Using racist terms and speech conveniently. Now, with that said, we have our guest. She is alderman in the San Grande Regional Corporation, and of course someone who is no stranger to the program. We are happy that we finally have her on to speak on the matter, to hear what she has to say, because unfortunately we haven't necessarily heard much from the other side yet. We're still waiting to see. But Alderman Daniel Piper from the San Grande Regional Corporation, good morning.
Good morning, Sean and Kitan. Are you all hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you fine.
Good morning, Alderman.
Good morning. How are you going?
We're doing well. How are you?
Fair to fine. Few scattered showers.
So, first of all, I need to ask, has there been any new developments in the situation? Because I do believe that while we are obviously looking at the national level, what the two political parties might be doing on a whole with regards to this incident, you are, of course, have to be concerned with what the regional corporation itself, how it moves forward with what happened last week. So, any new developments, or is it still waiting to, for a resolution?
Well, what has thus happened is that we, the members of the People's National Movement, have officially, we presented our motion to be debated to the CEO and to the chairman of the corporation. They are to respond within 7 days. We would have given them the motion Thursday. So we are just waiting for that feedback from the chairman to call the statutory meeting in order for us to have that motion debated.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just actually wondering on that. Is it that you're awaiting that response before deciding what your next step is? Because I remember clearly hearing Alderman Susan Holder stating that, she's prepared to go to court if need be. And often with these things, you wonder why it isn't taken to court. Is it that you're trying your best not to go in that direction, or is that still an option for you all?
Well, Alderman Holder, she alone would know why she would have made that statement about going to court or whatnot. But we are doing what is our right by the Constitution, in terms of the Municipal Corporations Act, because the standing orders clearly states that members are not supposed to use any sort of abusive or derogatory language at meetings. And you know what the public doesn't understand, this just wasn't any committee meeting, this was a statutory meeting. The statutory meeting is that meeting, we really compare it to a parliamentary sitting. There's a lot of pomp and ceremony. The chairman would have his chain on and stuff like that. So it wasn't just any meeting that, she would have displayed that kind of crass behavior. And so we are doing the needful. Our motions are to remove her as chairman of the committees that she currently holds, which would be the chairman of finance, and also the chairman of the Local Economic Development Committee, and also, to call for her resignation.
Well, these might seem harsh, but I do have to ask and potentially remind viewers, because we probably have spoken about this before. In your regional corporation, I believe that there was a reasonable working relationship between both sides, correct? I don't think your members were left out in the cold for the last however many years and ignored, or am I incorrect on that statement?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're kind of a little.
A little?
What has happened in this new term, we have been a little out, and, it is to be expected because, this is the UNC Health Corporation. However, even though you may feel as though you're out, there's still supposed to be some sort of equity within the sharing of resources. And what has happened thus far is that they are finding ways, which it is, they are not sharing as equitable as they should. And they have come out and say, well, it's an election year coming, so they have been very, it has the temperature, the atmosphere has changed a lot at the corporation. A lot of times, we would put the blame on the chairman of the corporation because he is supposed to, make sure that, no one at council feels any differently, because at the end of the day, whether PNM or UNC, there are persons who are elected by people. And, they have the right to access of resources. And so we would have had some issues in terms of allocation of resources. And of course, on our side, we would have come out and, we would have, debated in terms of making sure that, our people get what it is they deserve. And so we would have had that situation. The alderman, if you would have heard her exchange, she would have spoken about how when we don't get what we want, but it has nothing about us getting what we want. It's us getting what the people deserve. And apparently we were supposed to just, when they say A, we just supposed to take that and lie down, and that's just not how we rule. That's just not how we rule. We will fight and to ensure that our people get what we want. It's unfortunate that, it took that stance, but we are not surprised. This is behavior that has been exhibiting not just by the alderman, but by other members of the UNC, the other UNC members of council. And however, she would have taken it a little step further and also would have.
I think we might have had a little internet interruption there.
All right, Alderman, are you with us?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay,
I'm here.
We lost you for a moment there, but I just wanted to ask you to clarify, because you mentioned allocation, and you said, well, this is behavior that we've seen from other members of the UNC. If I may say so, I have seen this all around. I have seen this from members of the government. I have seen this from members of the United National Congress. So it's nothing to say that it's only for one party. I think it's all around, and I certainly think it needs to change all around. All around, it certainly needs to change.
I quite agree with you. I quite agree with you, but I'm speaking about what I would have experienced, and not just I mean, we have minutes, we have recordings to prove and show the behavior at the Sandy Grande Regional Corporation.
No, certainly, and I think that should become public. But Mike, what I really wanted clarification you used a phrase there. You said to ensure that our people get what we want. What do you mean by that?
Well, as we, in a council, there would be members of both the UNC and the PNM. And there has been this sentiment amongst persons that, persons of a certain political party, they are not being, afforded whatever resources that the corporation would have. And when I say my people, it doesn't necessarily mean PNM people, but anybody who they find might be associated with or around, you know, it's becoming very, very untenable, very, very untenable at the corporation with respect to the, you know, the sharing of resources and whatnot. So that's what I mean when I say that. So there is this sense of, you know, the UNC held electoral districts would be getting more resources than the PNM held electoral districts.
Well, Alderman, that leads me to my next question. We've seen some of the feedback on a national level or pseudo-national level, of course, social media. We saw responses, but those generally tend to be the people at the extreme ends, the die-hard supporters or the die-hard detractors who will comment the most. For the people on the ground, whose opinion I think obviously directly matters, have you heard anything from the various citizens that you interact in the area that the regional corporation is responsible for? Have they voiced their opinion or anything that you could tell us? Or is this somewhat expected and it doesn't really, has it made an impact?
What I can say is that, well, I'm sure you remember that we currently have a member of council, a UNC member of council, who has charges of misbehavior in public office, who is sitting amongst us right now. And in comparison to his situation and this one, these people of Sandy Grande are very much incensed. They are very disgusted. They are very disappointed about the behavior that has been exhibited. And of course, you know, you will hear on the other side some person saying, but, oh, she is, you know, of that race, so she can use the words. You know, you would have persons saying those things. But, you know, the sentiment is that people are very much upset about it. I mean, right now, you know, we have this distractions of what is happening in Tobago and, you know, and whatnot. But people in Sandy Grande, they are very much upset about it, and even more upset at the fact that, you know, there has been no response coming out of the United National Congress, except, you know, those few words by Dr. Mulilal, where he said that, you know, they are investigating the matter. You know, we thought that we would have heard something last night. I didn't hear anything. I don't know if it is I missed it. But there has been no response. There's been no excuse, no anything with respect to it. So there's a sense of, you know, that they just want to bury the situation. And they are just hoping that, you know, the 9-day mentality that we have, that, you know, it will just go to pass. But, you know, we are not going to allow that as far as we can, as far as the law permits us to. We are taking this as far as we can.
Well, Alderman, my final question to you is simple. Who or what is going to be the catalyst for change? Because I agree with you, this situation, and bear in mind, by the way, Alderman, this is something that the public has been made aware of because of that report. There may be other instances as well that are taking place in other corporations or in other institutions associated with government. That being said, I am disappointed all around, not just in Susan Holder. I am disappointed at the opposition for their lack of a response or not reprimanding the alderman. But I am also disappointed at the government as well, because I sometimes see that their language on decorum is not something that we should see in leaders. So who or what is going to be the catalyst for change? Because the time for this is long past, and this nonsense needs to cease.
Sorry,
Yes,
I missed that.
My question is, who's going to be the catalyst for change?
Well, the thing is now, you are quite correct with respect to that. I mean to say, where does the buck stop? How much would we allow? Are we going to, because how this will reach eventually where it is probably will come to blows. And we don't want it to reach to that. So, you know, we must, you know, be making a stand right now as at this Sandy Grande Regional Corporation. And, you know, we do have the support of, you know, of our party on the whole, because, you know, we find that it is really, really above and beyond. And, you know, I guess we are the catalyst for change. We must start somewhere. We are not going to allow it to just die down.
Well, Alderman Piper, I want to thank you very much for joining us on Talking Point. It's good to see you again, and I know that you will be very busy now and in the days and months to come, but thank you for making time for us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
Alderman Piper.
All right.
Bye.
Well, that's Alderman Daniel Piper of the Sangre Regional Corporation, once more updating us as to the situation that is taking place there. I suppose, Sean, when the response by the chairman and the alderman is given.
I don't really expect, from the chairman.
77 days, remember.
I don't really expect anything big to come from it. You see, it's a kind of, there's a catch-22. The issue, how important is it nationally? It is and it isn't at the same time, you know what I mean? It doesn't change the price of bread, but at the same time, should something like this be allowed because it opens a door?
Clearly not. Clearly not. But folks, let's take a break here on Talking Point now. And when we return, well, we'll have our final discussion for the morning. Stay tuned.
It's convenient shopping. The new J&A Supermarket and Deli on the Avenue, Aripita Avenue, for all your grocery items, market items, grab-and-go meals, plus mobile phones and accessories. Christmas is coming. The Retail Warehouse Christmas Village is back with great deals. So check us in-store or online today.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen, and we just had a conversation with regards to the incident that happened in Sangre Grande, and I say incident because at the end of the day, it was not a major catastrophe, a major tragedy. It was, however, something that I believe, unfortunately, it's important enough that we do have to talk about it. It seems as though most parties concerned with regards to the political arena in the wider national sphere are more than happy to let it die down. The irony, of course, now, the Alderman herself somewhat alluded to the fact that Tobago is overshadowing the situation. So that leads us back to that topic because there's still so much more to unpack. Ironically, both situations are where language comes into place. Now, the situation in Sangre Grande, I would say, is very obvious, right? To anyone with modern sensibilities, for better or worse, that sort of language, we can't have that in an executive meeting or any sort of government body. The situation with Tobago now, I think also, and I always come back to this point, the language of what's being communicated and how it's being communicated. So, as I said, switching gears back to the Tobago topic, the conflict, it seems, between the THA and the PDP, we have a video from the Trinidad deputy leader of the PDP. And she had some interesting things to say. Keaton, I'm not sure if you've heard all of this. I know you might have heard snippets of it in the office. But, I mean, this is just but a fraction of what she said in a video yesterday posted on social media.
Why would you use words that is derogatory in nature? Why would you say you want to put his position in review and so much so that you can make it redundant? Why would you say such things? That is gross misconduct and gross disrespect on your part. But we all fall short. No one is perfect. We understand that. But you must recognize quickly and make a public apology for your actions against your political leader. Because in the same vein, my brother Fali, in the same vein, there were many allegations that I was privy to that was made against you. Allegation of bribe and corruption, that you are favoring Trinidadian business contractors and giving them contract because they are giving you millions of dollars in return. Those were allegations that was brought forward to us about you. But what did our political leader do? Did he put you before the boss? Did he say that he wants to review and do an investigation? No, he quickly refuted those claims. There were many other allegations that you are working with the enemy. You are working with another political organization to bring down the PDP. What did he do? Again, he refuted those claims. There were claims and allegations again continuously being made against you that you are going for the position of political leader of the PDP and you weren't happy with the hand that gave you the crown. Why would you want to cut off that hand that gave you that? Why would you want to give it up or throw it away? For what? For the illusion of power? For senseless ambitions? Who can love the PDP more than the father of the political organization? On the eve of a pending local government election in Trinidad and Tobago, would the political leader of the party want to destroy the very thing that he built? No.
Well, folks, that is the Trinidad deputy leader of the PDP. And I do believe, Keaton, that she seems very much like a Trinidadian politician to me. Notice the language, the hand that gave you the crown. This after the Duke was alluding to the fact that somehow the THA was treating the Roxborough performers basically some very interesting imperialistic colonization type words, right? But now she's using language to say you got the crown. Crown of what? This is a monarchy? Keaton, I mean, you had a very interesting point as well.
First of all, who is Kesel Jackson? But anyway, if you're trying to make a name for yourself, it's not going to work this way, quite frankly. I Googled you, I saw a couple photos of you. I don't know who you are. You are the deputy leader of the PDP for Trinidad, so I will respect you in that capacity. What you've done there is exemplified exactly the kind of politician that Trinidad and Tobago does not need. Politicians of your nature are no longer what is needed. You see, when you always have to be a suck-up towards your political leader, to me, I don't fall for that. You made some good points. I will give it to you. But you also have to understand that in your position, clearly you are trying to win points.
But Keita, what points did she make that was good?
So, first of all, let me just say, I don't know what derogatory language Fali Augustine used, and I don't know if you just were looking for words in your head and you just came up with that.
Keita,
Secondly,
in Trinidadian politics, you can't say anything about the political leader. It is a sin.
Also, somebody correct me, what is political genocide in this particular issue? Because you use that term as Kesel Jackson, I don't think you understand, the language or the words that you're using.
Let me try to explain this one. The fallout could sink the PDP. What she doesn't realize is it started with Duke's statement, not Fali's.
Anyway, so Kesel Jackson, clearly you are not a breath of fresh air. Quite frankly, I think you're just a politician of the old kind that is not needed right now. But here is where I will give you credit. You said you were privy to certain allegations made against Mr. Fali Augustine. And you listed quite a few. First of all, whom did you hear those allegations from? But secondly, the mere fact that you didn't even realize that you said Watson Duke, as political leader of the Progressive Democratic Patriots, chose to do nothing about those allegations, chose to have no investigations, or chose not to find out more as to where the source of those allegations came from or whether or not they were true, that tells me, Kezel Jackson, that quite frankly, Watson Duke is no leader, right? He may be the political leader of the PDP, but he should have done the right thing. If he campaigned on corruption, if he campaigned on getting rid of this, if he campaigned on levy fixes, nobody is immune to the law. And quite frankly, more should have been done. So by you telling me that he completely overlooked that and bypassed that, you don't realize what you've just said about your political leader, Watson Duke. Now, Farley Augustine, you need to respond to these allegations. You need to respond to everything Watson Duke has brought forward, as well as Kezel Jackson. Because if you remain silent, you are going to be deemed as guilty. And to me, you have not answered everything. To me, this silence, whilst I understand you do not want to further this public spat, you don't want to escalate it, you also need to respond because the people are looking. The attention of the people are now focused on the PDP, Farley and Watson. I don't think Kezel Jackson realized what she said there at all.
So, Keaton, I actually completely disagree with you. I do not think Farley has to do much, if anything, in his defense of these so-called allegations. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have never heard of these allegations before. So
neither have I.
Like you, where have they come from? Where did she hear them from? Who actually made them? What are they even about? I could make a whole host of allegations right now against Watson Duke. I don't expect that he would have to defend some random allegations I make against him on a social media post. The fact that Mr. Duke did nothing by his deputy, and I would say his probably might be his only crony. Maybe that's why he was happy to go to Trinidad, to try to get some supporters for himself for whatever internal power struggle we might be seeing. The words of Ms. Jackson that he did nothing, if the allegations are true, that means that Mr. Duke was more than happy with government corruption by saying, hey, I need him for my party's political power. I'm going to do nothing. More likely, I believe, the allegations are completely false. And Ms. Jackson, caught up in this yarn, spinning this tale, was not careful with how she communicated it and said some very, well, unfortunate phrases. And the reason why I say that is, right, these claims don't make sense. These claims don't make sense, right? And the nonsensical nature of the claims, to me, I don't even see why Farley has to defend them. And their own English is countering their own claims. He should just let them sing themselves.
No, you disagree with me, and I respect your point. And here's where I disagree with you. I am in no position, and neither are you in a position to state that those allegations are false. Because we have not heard them before, we are not in a position to state that. And quite frankly, if we sit on this platform and say those allegations are false, 1, we were privy to them before. 2, we know the information. 3, it honestly comes across as though we are taking a political position, and we're not about that.
Okay, I am willing to say that, in my opinion, I think they are false. But also,
I can't think they're false because I don't know the extent of the allegations. But she just gave a brief thing. The reason why I said Farley Augustine should respond is because you've said it many times on this platform. Communication is obviously the most important thing. Farley Augustine himself said it. Perceived corruption. Well, what he said about perceived corruption.
Fair enough. It's just
so,
that, yeah.
Using his own words, using everything that he said and everything that we stand for, quite frankly, he should address it.
There is a practical problem, though. And the practical problem is, now she gave some details, but not a lot. So the irony is, he might not even know just exactly what he's trying to defend, right? The other thing is, one of the reasons why I think these claims are mostly nonsense is, this is the guy that said he was going to swim from Tobago to Trinidad in protest, and then put on a life jacket and had a jet ski to help him go part of the way, right, as a publicity stunt, right? That's his camp. A lot of the, and especially with regards to the whole claim that Watson Duke gave Farley the keys right, gave Farley the crown, was it that he gave it to Farley, or was it that he realized, listen, they're not going to elect me? Or, what I thought at the time, he was greedy and wanted to hold on to his position in the unions so that he would be able to leverage both, despite the fact that there was a direct conflict of interest being a member of a government executive that negotiates with the union of the Water and Sewage Authority. So I thought that was his reason why putting Farley as chief sec. Not no altruistic, benevolent reason, right? But then there's also the fact that Dr. Mohammed said, listen, Watson Duke is essentially 2 steps away from completely unelectable. Okay, Roxbury elected him, but if he was the candidate for chief sec, and I believe he stated it himself, he had to publicly, right, assuage the fears of voters that he was not the candidate for chief secretary before that election.
I don't think if Watson Duke were to go up for the position of chief secretary, would you have seen the victory that the PDP saw?
Exactly.
I do not think so at all.
But he's acting like that's not the case.
And also, I don't think that if Watson Duke were to form another party, now, and I could be wrong, you know, the tales of Trinidad and Tobago, there's so many twists. I don't think that you would see Watson Duke getting that level of support.
Well,
I don't think so.
Flip side, I would assume that he would keep the PDP, and if anything, the membership, the assemblymen that disagree with him would have to break away. Do you think that there's room for those members, hypothetical, we don't know how many they are or who they will be? Obviously, we would assume Farley.
For sure, we don't know what's going on internally. So let me ask you a question. What if the members of the executive of the PDP are actually also frustrated with Chief Secretary Farley Augustin? What if that's the case? Or, on the flip side, what if they're frustrated with Watson Duke and there's a push to remove Watson Duke?
The thing is, the party can't remove Farley unless the assemblymen, a majority, wants to remove Farley, right?
No, we're talking about Chief Secretary.
Right, sorry. Yeah, with regards to Chief Secretary, not just the assemblymen, but also the councillors, you have to have a majority in the THA, right? Farley would, I believe, remain Chief Secretary once he has enough support in the Assembly. With regards to the party, both could be removed from the party, at the will of the majority of the executive and the voters through whatever process their party constitution is, which means, yes, technically Duke could lose political leadership right away, but Farley's position in the party, I don't believe, this is different to the case with Boris Johnson because of that separation. It's not easy to know how it will go, right? It was more obvious with regards to Boris Johnson as he was losing support because you saw it on both sides, because that's just how it was. But because it's 2 separate men holding the 2 positions separately, now the question is who has the support. But in either political arena, we haven't necessarily heard anything just yet to really indicate, because Ms. Jackson is from Trinidad, so I'm not sure to what extent her voice carries weight with the party that won the THA election at the start of this year, or last year, the end of last year.
Well, we know where Kazelle Jackson stands. I don't know where this came from or whatever it is. Folks, you can share with us your opinions after the 9 o'clock news on the hour, for which we go for now. We'll be right back after this.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise St. Clair. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Ministry of Education says no change to textbooks for 2023-2024. Man appears in court for threats to endanger life. THA minority leader and Prime Minister weigh in on THA rift. And internationally, Australian man killed by pet kangaroo. Now for the details. The Ministry of Education has advised that in accordance with the circular memorandum issued to principals, there should be no changes to the list of textbooks for the years 2023-2024. This means that textbooks should neither be added nor additions change at any class level on schools' book list for academic years 2023-2024. The ministry is in collaboration with ICNTT and they're currently engaged in the procurement process for an e-book platform. Further to this, the ministry will commence a review of textbooks, including e-books and e-resources, the outcome of which will be used to inform the policy regarding the formulation of book lists. A 23-year-old man appeared before the Sangre Grande Magistrates Court yesterday, charged in connection with a shooting incident which occurred last Tuesday in Valencia. Jason Paul of San Pedro, Valencia, was charged with shooting with intent, possession of firearm and ammunition to endanger life. According to a police report, on September 6th, the 42-year-old man was approaching his home when he was confronted by 6 armed men. The man told police that one of the suspects allegedly made threats to shoot him and pointed a firearm in his direction. He then heard 2 explosions before becoming fearful for his life and escaping the scene. Police were later contacted and Paul was subsequently arrested. THA Minority Leader Kevin Morris was speaking during Monday's ceremonial opening of Parliament, and he said he will continue to focus on the needs of the people of Tobago. He was responding to the ongoing public rift between the THA Chief Secretary and PDP leader over the last few days.
At the end of the day, we are focused on our work on the ground, meeting the cries of the average Tobagonian, understanding even now that we still have rebuilding to do. So the PNM, we are focused on our own internal party matters and that of the people of Tobago, and that is as far as we are concerned about.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley also weighed in on the public rift between THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine and PDP leader Watson Duke.
Why would I be concerned about other people's political agendas as long as they stay within the laws of Trinidad and Tobago? It's still a free country. But the second part of your question is yes. To the extent that any of these developments negatively impact on the ability of public officers to discharge their duties, then the government has an interest in ensuring that we keep an eye on that.
An Australian man has died after being attacked by a kangaroo he had been keeping as a pet, police say. According to reports, a relative found the 77-year-old man with serious injuries on Monday at his home in Redmond, about 400 kilometers south of Perth. When paramedics arrived at the rural property, the kangaroo prevented them from treating the man. Police were forced to shoot the marsupial dead. The man died at the scene. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Sinclair. Thanks for watching.
Talking point, and of course we've been having the main conversation of the morning, the situation between the head of the THA and the head of the party that won the last THA election. And my co-host, he made some very important points. First of all, he reminded me of 2 very important things. I believe your argument in hindsight now is correct with regards to Farley. He has been upfront with things, and he should try to be as upfront as possible. But also you reminded me that Watson Duke lost the Tobago East seat in the general election just a year before. So that also brings up into question how much support he actually has in Tobago. So it's interesting, Keaton, but you're right with regards to those 2 points. And I do hope you would hear more, because we do run the risk of it being dragged out. And the result could have some very, very bad news for Tobago and their politics but also potentially for the rest of the country, because there was a little bit of hope that win, lose or draw, the PDP, at least with the new kids on the block, that might, and in my mind, the competitive spirit now into politics means that the two incumbent parties can't just be complacent and at the very least should improve. But if the PDP implodes before they could even make it a national election, then that's a moot point.
Well, it's going to be very difficult for any party to make it a national election. Any political party.
You mean any new party?
Yeah. Well, what the PDP has done is quite frankly, they've, or what's taking place in the PDP, let me not say what the PDP has done, but what's taking place in the PDP is not very good in terms of public relations for a national level. I know that from the time I saw Watson Duke as PSA president, I knew that he wanted to be Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. His ultimate goal and ambition is to become the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And whether or not he has that support, whether or not he has that pull, or if all of this is part of his strategy because he is not Chief Secretary, he's not President of the PSA, so he's not really in the spotlight anymore. I don't know. But he wants to be Prime Minister, put it that way. And I'm not sure if that will ever happen. It could. As I said, the nature of Trinidad politics, you get some surprises that absolutely shock you, and then some that you just expected. So,
I mean, again, he's playing into the hands of his political opponents, and that is Mr. Duke. Because I think, at the very least, I agree with the Chief Secretary when he seemed quite a bit shocked that this situation was even happening over what appears to me to be a random incident, right? We're not even talking about a major policy decision for the party or a major policy decision for the THA. So, and no disrespect to the Roxborough performers, I understand that, the disruption to your life, of course, is not something that I would welcome, and I don't necessarily want your situation to have to be now played out in a political arena. But there was no indication that something would, at least it seems to me, or those of us on the outside, that something was going to happen now. And it's kind of weird and unfortunate that this might be the genesis that might kill the flames of the first legitimate third force we've had since the COP,
I think,
which also didn't necessarily last that long in the grand scheme of things.
I think the most important thing is what the people of Tobago are feeling. What the people of Tobago are thinking.
Yes, I tried to reach out to a few people, but I wasn't able to get them busy schedules.
That's the most important thing. In fact, why don't we open up the phone lines now? Call in and join us on Talking Point this morning. Share with us your thoughts and opinions. And I'm curious to know what the people on the ground in Tobago are thinking, what they're feeling. I think the Prime Minister's response to the question asked was good. I can't see anything wrong with him saying, I don't want to be involved in another party's internal politics. But of course, if it affects the ability for them to govern, then national government will have to intervene.
The irony is, it seems as though the THA and the Assemblyman, at least so far, it might not. Their political strength might keep that.
Thus far.
That's
why the Prime Minister
keep that ship moving.
We're keeping an eye on it. Call on the line with us from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
And, Small.
Morning.
Yeah, well, we expect when some people tell themselves government is just to run, you want to get rid of the PNM, but where's the plan? How to go about the country? The plan, the THA have rules, and you have to go by the rules. You can't just take money and just get people.
Exactly.
It's an establishment, but then so be it. The point is that to Keaton now. Keaton, you mentioned last time when I told you about the independence that the Prime Minister wasn't there in 2012. You was wrong. The Prime Minister was there in 2012 to the 50th anniversary. You understand? When the opposition today was the Prime Minister,
Yeah, the Prime Minister was.
Mistaken me.
No, the Prime Minister was opposition leader at the time. He wasn't. Dr. Keith Rowley was the opposition leader at the time. He was not the Prime Minister at the time.
But I think he's saying that he was at the celebration.
Yes, yes, yes. No, no, no. I'm not disputing that. I'm stating that he was not Prime
Yeah.
Minister. He was opposition leader.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Okay. So there may have been some confusion, but thank you, caller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Right?
caller.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller.
Yeah. I think there may have been some confusion there. He was opposition leader.
It
but yeah.
happens from time to time. I mean, the
that's
interesting part is most of the arguments we have with the professor is actually when we agree with him. Ironically enough.
I think we have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
You know, this situation in Tobago is not surprising. And when I say that, I mean the people in Tobago that's trying to run Tobago by proxy. And this is a serious issue. There are people in Tobago that could not get elected, but they're always talking. And those are the people that are trying to run Tobago by proxy. And those are the people that Mr. Duke is pushing back against. This is a serious issue within that because they back the PDP because they wanted the PNM out. They wanted the PNM out of Tobago.
Yeah.
Which not going to happen. However, they're trying to run. They are the ones that are assisting Mr. Augustine and his fraction, because there is a fraction within the PDP that are in the THA that are now putting themselves forward as we are running the show, and that do happen when you have a man like Mr. Duke. That really can happen. This was inevitable.
Yeah, yeah.
This was inevitable.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you, caller.
I'm not going to say that your claims are wrong. I will just say that I don't necessarily see Duke as the protagonist of this story, let's put it that way, as the hero of this adventure. I do think that he's right in that this probably was inevitable, but just Watson Duke's character alone, maybe not like this, but it made it somewhat of an inevitability.
The birth of the PDP, the death of the PDP, it's been less than a year since they actually were sworn into office at the THA. Caller on the line with us from San Juan. Good morning, caller.
A very good morning to Keaton and a very good morning to Sean Michael.
Good morning.
Yeah, I think what is this imbroglio that is going on between Mr. Duke and Farley Augustine, this is nothing new to Tobago politics, because we had that many years ago. You two gentlemen might be too young, to remember. Many years ago, when A.N.R. Robinson led the Democratic Action Congress to winning the first Tobago House of Assembly elections by winning 8 of the 12 seats. I think that was in 1980 or 1980, somewhere around there, yeah. He had a falling out with one of the reps. No, even before that, when they had won the 2 Tobago seats in the parliamentary elections, A.N.R. Robinson had a falling out with his fellow Tobago parliamentarian, Dr. Winston Murray. And Dr. Winston Murray even wanted to raise his own flag and form his own national anthem for Tobago and all of that sort of thing. And then we had a situation where Lennox Denoon, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, of course, Chief Secretary in those days were known as Chairman, and he became very chummy with the PNM Prime Minister at the time, Patrick Manning, and that was much to the annoyance of the DAC supporters in Tobago. But I think this whole thing had its genesis in the fact I can't understand why Mr. Duke would be the political leader of the PDP.
Yeah.
You go into an elections, Keaton and Sean, against the PNM, but you say that if you win, you would not become the chief secretary.
Yes.
And you are the political leader of the PDP. That is saying that if Keith Christopher Rowley is the political leader of the PNM and the PNM wins the election, Dr. Rowley wins his seat, but he's not going to be Prime Minister. There seems to be a conflict of interest. And in closing, something always confused me, and I hope you two young gentlemen, bright, aspiring young gentlemen, would raise this issue. I've heard it raised before. Why is it that this country has had 2 Prime Ministers from Tobago, A.N.R. Robinson and the current Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley? Why is it that a Tobagonian could aspire and become the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and a Trinidadian cannot aspire and become the Chief Secretary in Tobago. When we talk so much about we are islands side by side, and we coin phrases like I'm a Trinbagonian and Trinidad and Tobago is one. Why is it that a Tobagonian could become Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, but a Trinidadian cannot aspire to become Chief Secretary of Tobago? I listened to your response of there. I think there's a constitutional flaw there, and the framers of the Constitution need to look at it.
Thank you,
I listened to your response of there. Thanks for your time.
Before we give you a response, we have a caller who's waiting, a caller from Shipgoners who joins us now. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I think I'll start off by answering your last caller's question. There is nothing in Trinidad, as far as I know, most in the world, why the head of the party have to take on the Prime Minister post. Secondly, there is nothing to prevent a Trinidadian from getting the House of Assembly. All he has to do is go over there and satisfy the residency qualification, live for whatever time it is, and get somebody to vote him in. There is no law against that. Now, unfortunately, yesterday I had an important appointment early. But when I listen to your prayer and I hear when they talk about gangs, I say, well, they have no problem with that. I explained all that to them already. And lo and behold, everything was said except what I said. Fortunately, two of your callers zeroed in it and said the question with gangs, you have to deal with the gangs. How you get rid of the gang. Not how you persuade people not to join the gang. And when I said this last time, your guest was there yesterday again, said the police can't do it by themselves. And I said they don't have to do anything by themselves. The public service is supposed to be managed as a single entity. And the police commissioner is on that committee with the Prime Minister, and he could bring up things that other people are not doing. Right? And all this nonsense he talked about yesterday is not going to address the problem of gangs. You have to get to the root of it. And my last point, that's Tobago business. The people, the Chief Secretary in Tobago don't have to have a running conversation with everybody. In fact, public servants are not supposed to do that. It is true, as head of the House of Assembly, he can talk for himself. He don't have to get anybody's position. And what he has done is put out his position. My problem with Tobago is what both of them is saying is against the law and proper governance. And there is enough thing there for a police investigation. You cannot take public funds and give it out to people to run all over the country and apparently there's no documentation on it. Because if there was documentation as to how this money was given out, then you couldn't make all them statements because he would have gotten a copy of it. And what we need here is a police investigation as to what's going on. And the final point on the president, I agree with everything she said, except the cause. The cause is not the politicians who get along with each other. Because as Dr. Rawley quite rightly pointed out, we get on good yet compared. I remember the time the Japanese parliament, they start to fight one another and kick up one another and all kinds of things like that. The problem is the basic principles of good governance. We do not follow the law. We do not have my favorite annual administrative reports going to Parliament, which will guide the debate. And we're going to have a budget pretty soon. And I could assure you, you're still going to have no annual administrative report. I don't know if you have any questions, gentlemen, or I'm sure you're going to say, yes, you agree with everything I say. And next program, you forget it.
We will try not to forget it.
Hey, Professor. Professor, it's good hearing from you. Have a good day. Good day.
That's a normal comment again.
Thank you, Professor. There's a lot to say. I'll just start off with one quick point before you weigh in. Good governance. Dr. Mohammed said it. That's what he thought was the issue, even with this THA thing. So for the professor to say, listen, our problem is good governance, I think at the end of the day, it comes back down to that. How the public services run, how the administration, the bureaucracy. A lot of our problems come to that. Corruption comes in there and all of that. Yes, good governance.
Couple of things. First of all, one, In relation to the police investigation, I agree. But I wouldn't say more so to the sponsorship of the cultural group. I would say more so for the allegations made by Kessel Jackson, right? And you also need to investigate as to why Watson Duke did not have an investigation himself as political leader of the PDP. Furthermore, I'd like to respond to what the caller from Trinidad asked, San Juan, right? He asked, why could there not be a Trinidadian going to Tobago and being chief secretary, but there could be a Tobagonian being prime minister? People are going to disagree with me with this. They are probably going to face backlash. But I'm not afraid of stating it because it's the truth. Let's be honest. There is a certain disliking of Trinidadians by Tobagonians. I don't think a Trinidadian could go across to Tobago and be chief secretary because Tobagonians wouldn't accept it. They don't want a Trinidadian leading them. They don't want to have anything to do with a Trinidadian be there. Hold on, very quickly. Honestly, I can't blame Tobagonians because I have seen in Tobago how many Trinidadians speak and treat with Tobagonians and the environment. And I mean, it's the truth. Disagree with me if you want.
Just quick, I think legally there's nothing to stop a resident of Tobago who is from Trinidad.
No, there isn't.
And I do think that might change over time as the island gets more integrated. But that, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, there's. But we have a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
The islands.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yes, I just joined the program. Actually, I was in the kitchen cooking yesterday. Okay. I want to agree with Shogunas there, that's now the professor, when he says there should be a criminal investigation into that, because in fact no document has been presented from the chief secretary pertaining to the fund release. So I believe something went underhand and he gave them some funds and they can't account for it in black and white, so they need to, but probably it was done in good faith, and I hope that, they work with their problems, because it doesn't look good for a new party like that. The next thing is that I listened to the president. She spoke well. She gave good advice. But this is the problem we have in this country. People giving good advice, them themselves don't even listen to their own advice. So the fact is that we need to adjust and come about with all these things, man, because people like to see people do things and folk could follow them and back them up. And I hope that you all have a good day and enjoy the balance of the day, and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We hope you have a good day as well.
Thank you for your continued support of the program, because I believe that caller, he has been one of the longest and continuing callers. So,
but just a couple of things. One, yes, no documents were shown. Chief Secretary Fali Augustine is claiming that close to $400,000 in sponsorship was given. The performers are saying, no, hold on, we only got nothing more than plane tickets. At least Watson Duke speaking on their behalf, that's what they're saying. So yes, you're right, something needs to be done about this, whether it be a police investigation or even an Integrity Commission investigation. And even from within the THA themselves, although you might not expect anything to come out of that. But very finally also, yes, nobody's take advice. Everybody's give advice. Nobody's ever take advice.
The 400,000, as I said, the amount to me is suspicious as a member of a traveling group. The thing is, though, as I've tried to explain, you have to invoice and the THA will pay wherever the accommodation provider is directly. It doesn't give the money to the performers. It doesn't give the money. And again, the amount is very questionable. So this is where I could see there might be some room to have some sort of investigation just to double check things. I think it goes back to, it might be in Fali Augustine's interest to make sure everything, is above board. He doesn't have any questions about it. Investigations into allegations against the Chief Secretary. Yes, if there's evidence, it probably should happen again if it proves to be nothing, so that it shows to be nothing.
Then
there needs to be a minimum amount of evidence to start an investigation.
No. An allegation is made, you have an investigation to see whether or not there is evidence to back up
the
allegation.
Okay, sure.
And then,
sure. So, but I think the problem is, though, the things that Duke said, they just seem to just not add up. as you pointed out. So it's very difficult to take it seriously. And even his claims, his initial claims, first he said they left them high and dry, they only gave them plane tickets, and then later on he said he seemingly walked back from the fact that he was holding the teacher responsible for other things when he realized that his bluster got called out, or potentially he exposed himself because he didn't understand the situation properly. But I think I want to amend what I said. I said, well, because of Mr. Duke's personality, I think the conflict was inevitable. That's dumbing it down. I think it's the difference in personalities of him and the rest of the Tobago leadership, plus the fact that he is not the chief secretary, but his deputy political leader is the chief secretary. So when you have two individuals who do not look like they share the same mode of thinking, but they're essentially sharing power, as opposed to what we would see in our system, in the Westminster system traditionally, it's concentrated in the leader is the Prime Minister.
Well, as I conclude, I will simply say, one, eyes are on Foley Augustine, because again, I think he should answer. That's my opinion, right? Because those are some allegations made there, serious allegations. And eyes are also on him because of expenditures, such as the trip to Grenada, to observe Grenada Carnival, and then now this as well. Especially knowing that he came out earlier this year, at the beginning of the year, and spoke about the accounts and the funds that were remaining. So I want to know if they really have this money, where they're getting the money from. So all that bear in mind. Two, Kezell Jackson, anyway, very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. And three, Watson Duke needs to realize that he's no longer in the PSA. But Watson Duke has an ego in which he always needs to be in charge. He has an ego in which he always has to take command. He has to give directions. If he pulls your chain, you bark. That's essentially what Watson Duke is. And that's what's happening here again.
And you pointed it out. Is that what we want to see from politics? We're already calling out other parties for that. And to me, this is the most egregious, naked example of that sort of nonsense that I have seen. I don't think I've seen anything from either of the other two parties that is just so apparent, so obvious. You know, you need to obey the leader, just so you're not even trying to make it, use some acceptable language to make it easier to digest.
The concept and the ideology of the PDP as a whole, as a collective, was different to what we saw in the last 21 years. And I think that's what the people of Tobago really appreciated, right? What we're seeing now, you could argue, some things we saw in the last 21 years. So the collective messaging and the collective ideology, that is good. But Watson Duke is too unstable. He's a loose cannon.
Maybe Ms. Jackson and people like her that are not part of the initial success are now, as much as I'll be honest, my personal opinion, I don't have much faith as Mr. Duke as a politician, right? That's just my personal opinion, based on his history as the PSA president. But I said it before, your point that you just made there, the way how they operate is different. To me, it seems like Ms. Jackson is just a Trinidadian politician and is an outsider to how the PDP was successful. The culture of the PDP that made it different and successful. That point you made there is very important. And I wonder to what extent maybe Duke is trying to use that as his support in the party in what might end up being really and truly, I don't necessarily want to say just yet, a political power struggle, an internal power struggle.
Well, it's happening right now, but that's where we have to wrap things up for this morning's edition of Talking Point. Thank you very much to all our callers, to our guest this morning, Neil Piper, and to my co-host, Mr. Sean Michael Small. I'm Keaton Shaw. Just remember, today is a good day to have a good day. The irony, the irony. Anyway, sweet Trinidad and Tobago. If things go good, God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN. Shantwell Vibes, a musical tribute to Andre Tanker, Saturday, September 24th, 2022, Central Bank Auditorium.
Showtime 7:30 p.m. Featuring 3 Canal, Mavis John, Ataclan, Empress Ajay, Stacy Sobers, and panist Natasha Joseph. Tickets $300. Available at Crosby's Music Center, St. James. Extra Foods, Arima, Grand Bazaar, and Endeavour. Online at Island E-Tickets. Committee members at 678-2843 or 482-3111. Central Bank box office on the day of the event. Mart's Liquor Palace, Diego Marte Main Road, La Puerta. A musical tribute to Andre Tanker. Saturday, September 24th, 2022. Central Bank Auditorium,